Under the Silver Lake is a movie that I've been thinking about for a while now, and I recently decided to do a video on it because I really wasn't sure if I wanted to, because of a little article that I saw saying that Under the Silver Lake was pushed back to 2019. And that was kind of sad, because Under the Silver Lake is one of the best movies of 2018, and now it's not getting a wide release until April of next year. So I decided, let's do a little video and maybe get some attention to this movie, and hopefully something will happen with it and it will get a good release and people will go see it. I don't know. I probably will have no effect on that whatsoever, but I felt like talking about it anyway.
You asked me if that
Come on in!
when I broke time.
I saw you spying on me earlier.
No, it wasn't.
Okay.
See you tomorrow.
Good.
So this is a movie from David Robert Mitchell, the director behind It Follows, which is a pretty good, effective, well-made horror movie from a few years ago that I thought worked pretty well. I thought it was solid, a good movie. I think the thematics of the movie and what it's trying to say I will go into near the end of this video, and to kind of build up to it, I kind of want to just talk about some things I think it does really well that will probably be underappreciated. So number one is the directing and the overall style of the movie. The cinematography and the way that the movie is executed is incredibly stylized. There's so many of these hard push-in shots, these long one-take shots, long far-away shots that kind of slowly zoom in on characters. And it's this sort of noir, 60s noir style that I thought was really great for this movie. Everything was so well shot and so well framed, and every shot seemed like it had a meaning to it and purpose, and it seemed like David Robert Mitchell put a lot of thought and energy into making every shot of this movie matter and making every shot of this movie the best that it could possibly be. As for the noir style with this movie as well, I think it works really well. The main story is about Andrew Garfield, who sees this girl in his apartment complex and decides that, hey, I'm gonna go and try and, get with this girl. And so he has one night with her, and they don't do anything aside from just watch some movies and kiss a little bit, and then she kicks him out abruptly, and she goes missing. And the story is about him trying to find her. And that is the most basic way I can put this story without going into all the little details that matter, and those little details I will address later. The story makes a lot of sense, and the characters all make a lot of sense too. Their motives are very clear, and the reason that Andrew Garfield goes after this girl is very clear too. And what happens as the movie kind of goes along is incredibly engaging. And I think one thing that really helps make this movie engaging is all the locations the movie has and all the sets that the movie has. Every single sequence seems to be in a completely different and new location, and it makes this movie so fresh and interesting from scene to scene. It never feels repetitive, even though there are a lot of scenes in his apartment or in a car or such and such, but there's so many different unique settings in this movie that make it so interesting and engaging from start to finish. You want to see what this new setting has to hold. You want to see where this new location is going to take our character. The music is amazing in this. It might be my favorite score of the year. It's done by Disasterpiece, who did the It Follows score as well. Really interesting orchestra pieces. You get these electronic pieces. You get some like old Nintendo kind of music cues that are interesting. And again, from scene to scene, the score is often very different from the last, and yet it just works so well in every scene it's used. It's also incredibly present in the movie. every scene that has the score uses it, and it uses it as if it's a defining part of each scene. It's not ever like drowned out in the background or washed out by people talking. It's there, it's obvious, and it has an incredible effect on every scene. And I loved it. I thought it was brilliant.
She wanted to leave. How does that not make sense?
I don't understand why she didn't tell me.
Maybe she didn't like you. Maybe she knows you're poor and haven't paid your rent.
I found some kind of code or like secret message in her apartment. It means stay quiet.
That kind of leads to the themes of this movie and what I think everything means. And of course, this is going to go into spoilers, as I'm going to talk about pretty much everything this movie has to offer. But I think the most obvious thing that this movie is going for is a nihilistic approach. The whole movie seems to be about our main character going after this girl, and in the end, it doesn't even matter, because he goes after this girl, and he finds her alive, but he can't do anything about it. She's stuck inside a burial tomb, and there's nothing he can do. So he ends up just going back to his house, and that's it. So the whole movie is building up to this ending where he either finds the girl or he finds out some dark secret. And he finds her, and it was pointless. And so the whole movie is, I think, trying to address the fact that life is kind of pointless, and you should pick and choose your battles appropriately, because there's so many different things going on in this movie, so many different threads and subplots that you need to follow and pay attention to, and it can be overwhelming. But once you start connecting the dots, everything makes a lot of sense, because our main character, Andrew Garfield, is this hot-headed, very sexually driven person, and it makes sense that he would go after the one girl that he never really got it with. Every girl that he is seen with throughout the movie, he has some kind of sexual interaction with them, except the main girl that he's going after. So, in our society of sexual-oriented and sexually subliminal messages all throughout society, it makes a lot of sense that this character, who is seen doing all of these things with all of these different women, would want something from this person that he didn't get it from. So it makes sense that he goes after her. And throughout the movie, there are so many different things that come up that are more important than that he just completely ignores. Like, there is a owl killer going around, where there's this kind of supernatural creature that breaks into people's houses and slits their throat in the middle of the night and slaughters people. They're like a serial killer. And there's also a dog killer that's going around and just killing tons of dogs, and Andrew Garfield just pays no attention to them. He seems to encounter the dog killer at one point, and then the next day doesn't care. And he definitely encounters the owl person who comes into his house, and he points a gun at it, and then she disappears and doesn't come back. And these things seem to be more important than chasing a girl, but he doesn't care. And I think that is another thing that this movie is trying to say, is that society seems to be so focused on certain things that don't matter, while important things that really do matter are going on right under our face, right under our noses, right under our faces. It doesn't make any sense. And we don't care, or we don't even notice that it's happening. And I think that is one of the bigger things that this movie is trying to say, very subtly, though. There's a lot of different subplots, like the owl killer, like the dog killer, that are happening where Andrew Garfield just doesn't care about him, and he keeps going after this girl. And ultimately, it doesn't matter, because he finds her, and she's under 15 feet of concrete in a burial tomb with a rich billionaire, and she doesn't want to get out. So his whole journey together was completely pointless and useless, and it achieved nothing.
Really think you're gonna find a hidden message in a pop song? 1, 2, 3. Can't quite see it, but I'm close.
Honey, how are you?
Mom, I'm fine. Mostly fine.
I think the biggest thing I got out of this movie upon a rewatch was how harsh this movie is critiquing pop culture. The whole film has these subtle images of Hollywood degrading classics and using them in pop culture as nostalgia bait. There's a scene when two indie movie stars are literally standing on the grave of Alfred Hitchcock. And there's a scene when Andrew Garfield and this girl that he just met are drinking drinks on tombstones of famous actors like Grace Kelly. And there's a lot of imagery like that, and the songwriter that comes in later. There's a songwriter that Andrew Garfield goes to, and the songwriter tells him that he's written all of Andrew Garfield's favorite popular songs. And if he was rebelling, he's rebelling to his music. If he was happy to his music, so his emotions were fabricated. And I think what the movie is trying to say with all of these different pieces is that pop culture is a fad that will not last, and everyone in pop culture or in popular media is just there for a paycheck, and they don't really care about the person that is viewing this material. They don't care what kind of emotional responses that people are having to this material, because all they want to do is collect a paycheck and move on. And I think that's a really interesting critique, because the movie itself is being not destroyed, but it's not being received very well by critics and fans alike. People don't really like this movie. And I think a lot of that does have to do with the fact that this movie is so harshly going after what people like so much. I mean, you could probably call this conspiracy theory the movie. The entire movie is about codes, secret messages, subliminal messages, and so on. It's just about conspiracy theories. And I really love the movie because of that. There's so much here that to dwell on. There's so many things in this movie. It's so dense and compact, and it's shocking that all of this is just in a 2-hour runtime. There's so much more that you could probably pull from this movie that I didn't, and there's probably so much more I could pull from this movie upon a second watch. But those three things are the biggest the things that jump out to me the most about this movie. There's also jabs at religion in this movie as well. There's also jabs at the political climate. It seems to tackle everything while also feeling like a cohesive product or a cohesive whole before it takes jabs at everything. The movie is a really great movie before it is a message, before it is a political statement. And that's what I really love about it. You could watch this movie and just be really entertained by the sequence of events and how it ends and not get anything from it. You can just watch this for exactly what it's showing on screen and not thinking about it at all. And you could probably be really entertained by it. It's just an incredibly well-made, incredibly palpable, engaging movie that I loved. I loved every second of this. I really don't have anything bad to say about it. I think it's one of the best movies of the year. It's up there in my top 3 for sure. And if you took Phantom Thread out of the conversation for this year, because a lot of people don't consider it a 2018 movie, but I do, this is the best movie of the year. So definitely see it when you have a chance. It's excellent. I loved it. I give it a 10 out of 10. It's amazing. It's amazing. So that's all I got to say. So, goodbye.